Welcome to my channel. When a veteran sniper with a mysterious past joins a high-tech military mission, nothing is as it seems. Trapped in a deadly game of betrayal, hacked systems, and unseen enemies, she must rely on skill, instinct, and an antique rifle to survive. As secrets unravel, the truth could topple generals and expose a conspiracy that reaches the very top. The barracks smelled of oil, dust, and the faint metallic tang of weapons being cleaned. I stepped inside carrying only a worn duffel and a battered rifle case, the kind of luggage that drew glances for all the wrong reasons. My boots echoed on the stone floor, half drowned out by laughter from the corner where Colonel Victor Cade was holding court. He had the kind of voice people stopped to listen to, booming, easy, practiced. The kind of man who thought the world bent to rank alone. Around him, 5 operators crowded close, marveling at a holographic scope he waved like a magician's wand. Total battlefield awareness, he boasted. Thermal, infrared, auto-adjusted atmospherics, straight from command. This system practically fires for you. The men chuckled appreciatively. I said nothing. I slid into a quiet corner and lowered my case onto the floor. The clasps snapped open with a sharp click, and for a moment, every head turned. Colonel Cade strode toward me with a grin that said he was about to make me the joke of the day. "You must be Sergeant Riley Arden," he said, looking me over. "Specialist support, right?" "Yes, sir," I answered. "Planning to join the op?" His eyes flicked down to my rifle. "That's the orders, sir." I opened the case. Inside, nestled in worn foam, lay my M24. Clean, immaculate, but old. Older than most of the men in the room had ever trained with. Cade let out a laugh sharp enough to set the others off. "They said we'd get support. They didn't say we'd get gear from a museum." Their voices bounced off the stone walls, their laughter loud, forced. I stayed silent, shutting the case with the same deliberate calm I'd learned in harder places. Not everyone laughed. Sergeant Maya Holt, standing off to the side, studied me closely. Her eyes weren't mocking, they were measuring. Briefing was at 1800. Extraction op, hostile compound. In and out fast. Cade outlined it with the crispness of a man who'd rehearsed the words, not the reality. When he finished, I finally spoke. "With respect, Colonel, the North Ridge will give the clearest line of sight on the compound." He raised an eyebrow. "That ridge is 2 miles out. Our optics max at 1500. You'll cover from the south flank." I nodded once and said nothing more, but my mind was already moving. Later, while I laid out my gear, Corporal Jonah Pike sidled over, eyes flicking at my rifle. "That thing looks older than my dad. First tour?" "No," I said without looking up. Always this talkative. He smirked. I met his gaze. Whatever he saw in my eyes made him step back. Maya drifted closer. "That M24's in fine condition," she said evenly. "Thanks. Most people lean on the new toys," she went on. "That shows," I replied. Her lips quirked in the faintest smile. When briefing resumed, the colonel droned on about contingency routes and fail-safes, dismissing anything outside his script. I noted the easterly wind in my small notebook, the drift none of their precious systems would catch if they went offline. Cade noticed my pencil scratching. "Something to share, Sergeant? 3 to 5 mile-per-hour drift in the valley. Your scopes won't account for it." The room went still. "Our gear accounts for everything," Cade snapped. "Not that," I said simply. His jaw tightened. The laughter from earlier had evaporated, leaving only silence and a growing unease. That night, while the squad settled into uneasy rest, I slipped outside into the cold air of Kestrel Base. Above me, the Sarath peaks cut the stars into jagged lines. I unfolded a small piece of paper from my pocket, my real orders. Not the ones Cade had seen. This mission wasn't what they thought, and the target wasn't who they believed. I folded the paper away and touched the worn leather strap of my rifle case. Whatever came at dawn, I'd be ready. Dawn spilled pale violet across the Sarath peaks as we moved into position. The cold clung sharp in the lungs, each breath fogging the air. Colonel Cade placed me exactly where he'd ordered, south flank, half a mile out, with Corporal Pike covering beside me. He couldn't hide his smirk when I laid out the M24. His own rifle bristled with attachments, a weapon more computer than steel. "You really think that antique can hit from here?" he whispered. If needed, I said, repeating Cade's own dismissive phrase. Over comms, Cade's voice cracked sharp. All units in position. Target confirmed in southeast building. Breach team, stand by. Then, static. Adrian Cole's voice cut off mid-sentence. Screens froze. A hiss replaced their data feeds. Tech team, report. Cade barked. Nothing answered. Fall back. Rally point Bravo. He snapped, his steady officer tone fraying at the edges. Pike looked at me wide-eyed. Orders are orders. We move. You go. I told him evenly, my eye fixed on the ridge across the valley. What? You heard him. Orders shift when situations do, I said. Move, Corporal. He hesitated, then backed off, muttering curses under his breath. The moment he was gone, I packed fast and cut north, climbing the ridge I'd argued for the night before. The ascent was steep, jagged, the kind of ground that chews the unprepared. But I'd moved through worse. My legs carried me steady, my lungs steady, my grip sure. In under 15 minutes, I reached the shelf overlooking the compound. From here, the valley spread wide, the compound lit in morning haze. Through my scope, the truth snapped into focus. This wasn't a holding site. It was a forward base, disguised as civilian, already gearing for combat. Trucks rolled out of garages. Fighters took positions. The op had been compromised from the start. At the rally, I could just make out the squad pinned behind rocks, their rifles near useless without digital systems. Enemy fire raked across them, deliberate and overwhelming. Cade's shouts bled through static. Return fire. Hold position. But I could see it. Their gear was blind, their shots scattered. I steadied my scope. The first round broke the morning stillness. One man dropped. Another shot, 2 bodies down. Each pull of the trigger was cold, deliberate, calculated. 8 rounds in total. 8 fighters down. The gunfire from the compound faltered, then stopped. From their cover, Maya looked up, tracing the line of sight. Her gaze fixed on my perch 2 miles away. I saw her lips form the words even from that distance. No way. And yet, there I was. I packed the rifle with the same calm precision and slipped down the ridge unseen. The mission had been a setup. And whoever wanted us dead wasn't inside that compound. They were higher up. The extraction truck was hidden in a ravine half a mile from the compound. A battered civilian model, nothing to draw attention. I reached it first and settled into cover, rifle case at my side. The squad came stumbling in minutes later, angry, shaken, confused. Colonel Cade's face was a storm barely contained. He opened his mouth, but froze when I stepped out from the rocks, holding up a small black box I'd pulled from the compound. This, I said simply. He squinted. What is that? A signal jammer. Tuned to your system's exact frequency. The squad fell silent. The weight of it sank fast. Someone had given the enemy our specs, down to the last signature. Maya's comm crackled before Cade could speak. Message from command. Encrypted priority. Sergeant Arden authorized to assume control of this mission. Cade stiffened. By whose orders? I laid the rifle case down and unlatched it. Inside, the stock of the M24 bore a mark burned deep into the wood, a crosshair with a star at its center. His expression changed instantly. Color drained from his face. The Deadeye program, he muttered. Pike blinked between us. The what? Maya answered quietly, reverence in her tone. Not what. Who? A classified sniper unit. Only 7 operators. Over 300 impossible shots logged. Arden's one of them. Cade turned to me, voice stiff with new respect. Major Arden, I wasn't told your true rank. That's the point, Colonel. I replied, meeting his eyes. The target isn't who you think. This op was a cover. The squad shifted, unsettled. Adrian finally spoke. Cover for what? For finding a leak inside our own intelligence branch. 3 teams dead in the last month. Each ambushed using their own equipment specs. Cade's voice dropped. You think someone in my squad? I suspected everyone. I cut in. Even you. Pike's outrage burst out. You used us as bait? I used a controlled setup to reveal a pattern. You were never in real danger. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Those shots. You dropped their entire strike force from 2 miles. No digital gear. Nothing but math and instinct. The Deadeye program was never about tech, Maya said softly. Cade's jaw hardened as he studied the jammer. Then the leak isn't in this squad. It's higher. Someone with command-level access. Exactly, I said. which means our mission changes. From here on, we move without systems. No trackers. No digital trails. Pike let out a shaky laugh. Without tech, how the hell are we supposed to fight? The old way, I replied coldly. Observation, deduction, skill. Cade straightened, finally swallowing his pride. Then where do we go? I looked north, to the higher ridges. To the man who built your targeting systems before he disappeared 3 years ago. Adrian frowned. Kessler? That scientist? He's dead. I shook my head. That's what you were told. The truth isn't that simple. We drove north into the higher Sarath range, the truck rattling over gravel tracks no map marked. The air thinned with every mile, biting sharper, stripping warmth from our lungs. I rode shotgun, eyes fixed on the terrain. The others whispered in the back, their confidence cracked, trying to process what had unfolded. Only Maya stayed quiet, her gaze steady, studying me the way I had studied them. Finally, Kate spoke. You really think Kessler's alive? I've tracked him for 18 months, I said. He didn't vanish. He went underground. And he's been selling access to every system tied to his designs. Which is why our gear failed, Maya murmured. Exactly. Someone bought your weaknesses before you even stepped into that valley. Silence held. The engine groaned against the incline. By late afternoon, we abandoned the truck and went on foot. No GPS, no trackers, only compass and terrain cues. The others struggled without their digital crutches. Pike cursed under his breath as we scaled a steep incline. Adrian stopped often to catch his breath. You trained for city blocks and deserts, I said flatly. This isn't either. Adjust. Is that dead-eye doctrine? Adrian asked, sweat dripping. No, I replied. That's survival. Something technology makes people forget. We climbed until the light waned, the peaks painted in cold fire by the setting sun. And then the complex revealed itself. Built into the cliffside, camouflaged with rock and brush, it was almost invisible until we stood before it. Reinforced steel doors, a guard half asleep outside. He wasn't expecting visitors. Cade reached for his sidearm. Standard breach. No, I said, already moving. I climbed a ledge above, silent. From a pouch at my belt, I drew a small blowpipe and a tranquilizer dart. Maya's eyes widened as she watched me exhale. The dart sank into the guard's neck, dropping him without a sound. Trained to fight without tech, she whispered. I landed lightly beside the unconscious man. He'll be out 20 minutes. Move fast. Inside, the air changed. It smelled of oil, machines, sterile labs buried in the rock. Holographic blueprints lined the walls. Weapon schematics glowed on screens. And at the center, Dr. Victor Kessler. Thinner than I remembered, hair streaked gray, but those eyes, sharp and jittery, snapped up at us. He froze. His voice cracked. You were supposed to chase terrorists, not me. No one protected you, I said coldly. Your buyers sold you out. He trembled. They promised. They never promise, I cut him off. Adrian and Pike moved to restrain him. He didn't resist. The man folded like paper the moment steel touched his wrists. While they bound him, I swept the lab. Schematics, comm codes, stacks of files. Enough evidence to burn holes in half of command. Maya plugged a drive into one of his terminals. Data streamed in seconds, scrolling with mission lists, transfers, names. Her breath hitched. 12 missions. 37 dead. All compromised. Cade's voice hardened. Traitors. No, I corrected. Pawns. Funders who didn't know what they were building. And then I found it, a video file. Kessler, shaking hands with officers still in uniform. Among them, General Halverson. The pieces clicked, heavy as stone. Cade muttered, stunned. Halverson signed our briefings. I pocketed the drive and turned toward the team. Now you understand why we're here. This wasn't an extraction. It was exposure. Maya looked at me, eyes sharp. What now? Now, I said, my voice flat. We deliver the truth to eyes that still can be trusted. And we do it before Halverson erases us too. Do you want me to roll directly into part 5, or things? We didn't linger in Kessler's lab. Evidence packed, prisoner bound. We slipped out as the last light bled across the Sarath range. Shadows stretched long, covering our retreat. Kessler stumbled between Adrian and Maya, his voice rising in agitation. You don't understand what you're destroying. The targeting systems were only phase 1. Quiet, Cade snapped, shoving him forward. No soldiers, Kessler pressed, wheezing as rocks cut his hands. No mistakes. Autonomous units that never fail. No humanity, I muttered. He smiled thin. Humanity is the mistake. I ignored him, my eyes on the ridgelines. Darkness was coming fast, and with it, danger. I could feel it. A prickle on the skin, that hunter's instinct I'd learned to trust. Half a mile down the trail, we cut across a narrow pass. That's when Maya froze, head tilting. Did you hear that? I heard it too. The crunch of boots, not ours. Ambush, I whispered. A burst of fire tore across the rocks. Sparks and stone chips flew. The squad ducked instinctively, trying to bring rifles up, but their systems blinked useless. They're jamming again, Adrian shouted. Then fight without it. I barked, pressing into the stone. My M24 snapped open, round sliding smooth into the chamber. Pike panicked, fumbling with his weapon. I can't. Focus, I hissed. Use iron sights. Adjust to wind. He swallowed hard, but he tried. Good. That was all I needed. I leaned out, sighted, fired. One target fell. Shift, breathe, squeeze, another down. Maya followed my rhythm, forcing her weapon into manual mode. Her shots cracked raw, imperfect, but effective. Adrian and Cade moved like old soldiers stripped of comfort, rediscovering instinct. Their bursts weren't clean, but they bought seconds. Seconds were all I needed. One by one, the shadows on the ridge dropped. Silence followed, broken only by Kessler's laugh, high and sharp. You think this ends here? You think you've crippled progress? I designed flaws into everything you use. Every drone, every rifle, every armored vehicle. You're fighting with ghosts of my making. I stepped close, cold steel of the rifle stock pressing his chest. And yet here you are? Flesh and bone. Easy to stop. He shut up. The squad regrouped, shaken but alive. Pike was pale, sweat dripping. His hands trembled on his rifle. I can't do this. I'm not built for this. You just did, I told him flatly. He blinked at me. Barely. Barely is survival. Next time, it'll be better. Cade looked at me across the shadows. His earlier arrogance was gone, replaced with grim respect. Major, you've turned us into soldiers again. Not operators. Soldiers. Good, I said, scanning the dark ridges. Because soldiers are what we'll need. We pushed on, descending toward the valley floor. The night pressed close, wind sharp against our faces. For the first time, I saw in their eyes not doubt, not mockery, but belief. And that belief was dangerous, because belief could be broken. By dawn we reached the valley floor, muscles stiff, eyes heavy, but alive. The extraction site was a mile farther, a radio relay station built into a ridge. Command would expect us to check in there. I didn't like it. Too neat, too obvious. Still, we needed to move the evidence. Kessler shuffled between Maya and Adrian, his wrists bound, his mouth finally shut. His silence was worse than his taunts, like he was waiting for something. The relay came into view mid-morning. A squat concrete block, antennae bristling. The kind of place you'd pass without a glance, unless you were looking for it. Cade raised a fist, halting us. Clear the perimeter. I scanned through my scope. Empty. Too empty. No sentries, no patrols, no sound. We go in together, I said. Inside, dust and silence. Equipment still hummed, but faint. I approached the console and pulled the cover off the main comms board. Dead. Not damaged, scrubbed. They knew we were coming, Maya murmured. Adrian swore under his breath. So we're cut off? Not entirely. I pulled a small encrypted transceiver from my pack. Old tech, predating Kessler's systems. Dead, I issued. Still invisible to his back doors. Cade raised an eyebrow. So we can reach command? Not command, I corrected. Someone higher. A channel straight to the Joint Chiefs. That's where this evidence belongs. I plugged the drive into the transceiver. Data began to transfer, slow but steady. That's when the static rose. At first it was faint, a whisper in the comms. Then louder, jagged, filling the room. Pike clutched his headset. What the hell is that? Kessler smiled faintly. You didn't think I'd build only one jammer, did you? The console burst with sparks. My transceiver went black. I yanked the drive free, shoving it back into my vest. Move. Now. Gunfire erupted outside. The sound was wrong, controlled, disciplined. Not random fighters. Soldiers. We dived for cover as the first grenades shook the walls. Concrete cracked, dust choking the air. They tracked us, Cade growled. They knew we'd hit this relay. No, I said, steadying my rifle. They knew I would. The squad looked at me, realization dawning. This wasn't just about Kessler. Someone up the chain had put a target on my back. And they weren't sending mercenaries this time. They'd sent trained hunters. The first blast shook the relay station, cracking plaster from the ceiling. Adrian dragged Kessler behind a console while Maya and Pike scrambled for cover. They're pinning us in, Pike shouted, panic edging his voice. Then we break out, I said, dropping flat behind a window slit. My M24 snapped open with the calm of muscle memory. I breathed once, steady, and fired. One silhouette crumpled outside. Two more moving left. Maya called, switching her rifle into manual sights. Her shots weren't clean, but one found its mark. The other dropped low, crawling out of sight. Cade leaned against a wall, firing bursts through the dust. His voice was sharp, but different now. Less pride, more grit. We won't hold long. Too many angles. Then we changed them, I replied. I scanned the ceiling, found the ventilation shaft, and slammed the butt of my rifle into the grate. It gave with a clang. You want us to crawl out? Adrian asked, incredulous. They expect us to defend, I said. Not vanish. Go. Cade ordered, surprising me. He gestured to Maya and Pike. Take Kessler. Arden and I will cover. Pike hesitated, fear in his eyes. I caught his gaze. Trust me. Move. He nodded once and shoved Kessler up into the shaft. Maya followed, then Adrian. Gunfire ripped through the doorway. Cade and I answered, bursts echoing like thunder in the tight space. Two hostiles dropped in the entry, but more shadows pressed behind them. They're trained, Cade growled. Not rebels. Not mercs. No, I said, cycling another round. They're ours. The words landed heavy. He didn't argue. He knew I was right. I laid down 3 more precise shots, thinning the line. Go. I told him, motioning to the shaft. And leave you. I'll buy time. You'll need to lead them once you're clear. He gave me a long look. Not the mocking smirk from days ago. Something closer to respect. Maybe even trust. Then he climbed. Alone, I slipped to the far window, pulled 2 grenades from the fallen, and set them by the door with pins half drawn. Footsteps thundered closer. Shadows swarmed the hall. I whispered to myself, low and steady. Adjust for drift. Breathe with the earth. The first soldier burst through. My rifle spoke once. Then the grenades followed, roaring as the doorway blew inward, swallowing the entry team in fire and dust. I used the chaos to climb into the shaft, dragging the grate closed behind me. Ahead, faint light glimmered where my squad had already cut through to the outside. We regrouped in a rocky outcrop, gasping, coughing dust. Maya checked Kessler's restraints. Adrian wiped blood from a gash on his arm. Pike's hands shook, but his rifle was steady. Cade looked back at the smoking ruin of the relay station, then at me. They sent our own after us. I nodded. And they'll keep sending them, until we reach someone who'll listen. Kessler's laugh was sharp and mocking. You won't reach anyone. You'll die in the dark, forgotten. And the world will run on my machines. I met his eyes coldly. Not while I'm still breathing. We left the smoking relay station behind, climbing into the higher ridges. The ground was cruel. Sheer slopes, loose shale, cliffs that punished hesitation. The kind of terrain drones and sensors couldn't map properly. It was our only advantage. By midday, the squad was running on fumes. Adrian's arm bled through his sleeve. Pike stumbled often, his boots slipping on rock. Maya pushed him back up each time, her jaw set tight. You trained us for cities and deserts, Pike panted. Not this. The enemy picks the ground, I said, my breath even despite the climb. We adapt or die. Cade moved beside me, his voice lower than before. The Deadeye program. I'd heard whispers. Shots no computer could calculate. I thought it was a myth. It was designed that way, I replied. 7 operators, taught to fight when every system fails. He glanced at my rifle. And you all carried those relics? Not relics, I corrected. Tools. Dependable when nothing else works. We pushed on until the cliffside swallowed us in shadow. That's when I spotted it, a hidden complex built into the rock face, camouflaged so well it looked like part of the mountain. Not one of Kessler's. Older. Abandoned, maybe. We shelter there, I ordered. Inside, dust layered every surface, but the structure held. We lit no lamps, only sat in the dim, catching breath. Pike collapsed against the wall. We can't keep this pace. They've got drones. Satellites. They'll find us. They can't track what leaves no signal, I said, holding up his rifle. The screen still blinked faintly, trying to connect. I yanked the battery free and dropped it to the floor. From now on, no circuits. You're telling us to go dark? Adrian asked. Completely. No power. No signals. Only skill. Maya nodded slowly. Old ways. Exactly. Kate studied me across the darkroom. And if we can't adjust? Then you'll die like the last 3 teams, I said flatly. Silence followed, heavy but clear. Kessler broke it with a scoff. You really think you can run forever with Stone Age methods? Progress eats the old. Always has. I crouched in front of him, eyes steady. Then explain why you're bound, while I'm free. He shut up again. That night, I drilled them. No scopes, no circuits, no auto-assist. Just iron sights, compass bearings, and wind. Pike cursed every miss until his throat was raw, but I saw the shift. He was learning. Adrian's groups tightened with each shot. Maya, steady as stone, picked it up faster than most. Cade watched in silence. When I finally looked at him, he spoke low. You're remaking us. Not into what command wants, but into what soldiers used to be. Good, I said, cleaning my rifle. Because soldiers are harder to erase. By dawn we were moving again, higher into the Sarath range. The cold bit deep now, wind cutting through layers like knives. But the squad had changed. They moved quieter, steadier. Less like operators leaning on gadgets, more like soldiers who trusted themselves. Kessler dragged behind, wrists bound, muttering every few minutes. You're wasting your lives. The system's already in place. Whole battalions will answer to me. Not if you don't get to them, Maya said sharply, tugging him forward. We crested a ridge just as the sun broke over the horizon. Below, in a narrow basin, a comms tower jutted like a steel tooth. Not one of Kessler's. This was ours, a Joint Chiefs relay node, hidden from standard command grids. If we could reach it, the evidence would bypass Halverson and land in the right hands. Adrian spotted it first. That's our way out. I raised my scope, studying the basin. At first, all seemed clear. Then I saw it, movement in the rocks. Too precise. Too disciplined. Snipers, I murmured. 3 positions at least. They're waiting. Cade cursed under his breath. So they know this node too. They know everything Kessler designed, I said. Maya frowned. Then how do we break through? I scanned again, watching the way the wind curled across the basin. I could feel it on my skin, sharp, restless. Not something their sensors would read correctly. Not without me. I dropped my pack and opened the rifle case. The M24 slid into my hands, familiar, solid. I'll take the ridge. Clear their eyes. When they're blind, you move to the tower. Pike swallowed hard. 2 miles, maybe more? You can't. I can't, I said simply. Cade laid a hand on my shoulder before I could move. Not a commander's grip this time, but something closer to respect. We'll follow your lead. I climbed fast, hands finding holds as if the mountain knew me. At the shelf, I set the rifle against stone, body sinking into the familiar rhythm. Through the scope, the first sniper's face came clear. Breathe. Adjust. Squeeze. 1 shot. Shift. Wind curled, pulled. Adjust again. Second sniper dropped. The third moved, scanning for the shot. He never saw me. 3 rounds. 3 bodies. Silence. I keyed my mic once. 1 click. Go. Below, I watched my squad break from cover, sprinting across the basin with Kessler dragged between them. For the first time, they moved like one. No stumbles, no panic. Soldiers. The tower loomed ahead. Salvation, or another trap. I packed the rifle and descended. The ridge behind me stayed quiet. For now, when I reached the basin floor, Maya met my eyes. Clear? Clear enough, I answered. But once we transmit, they'll come again. Cade nodded grimly. Then we make it count. We stepped into the shadow of the tower, evidence in hand, hunted on all sides. And I knew, whatever happened next, this ridge would be remembered. We climbed the stairs to the antenna, each step ringing sharply in the empty metal frame. The height made the air thin and cold. I pulled out the transceiver and inserted the drive. The screen flickered green, data streaming through the darkness. Transmission started, Maya said. Stable? Kate asked. Stable, I replied, though I could feel every pulse of the signal could be intercepted. A minute later, static, faint at first, then a voice, quiet, authoritative, leaving no room for questions. Arden, data received. Awaiting further instructions. Remain in safe position. To the Joint Chiefs, I whispered, eyes glued to the screen. Now they know everything. Beyond the tower, darkness came alive with movement. A shadow appeared on the ridge above. Enemy snipers, disciplined, precise. They're moving, Pike said, his voice trembling. Not for us, I said. They're here for whoever gave the orders. We finished our mission. Maya nudged Kessler closer to me. His eyes were wide with fear, lips quivering. He wanted to speak, but understood words were useless. Cade pulled the radio to his ear. We hold position, cover the exit. I scanned the team, exhausted, bloody, but alive. And now they saw the world differently. No illusions from digital systems. No faith that tech would always save them. Only themselves and reality. Move, I ordered. No signals left below. Only our feet, our eyes, and our decisions. We descended the slope, Kessler between us, heavy as the burden of all his sins. The valley welcomed us in a morning mist. The heights hid us from anyone who might have been watching. We walked long and quietly, each step cautious but sure. Behind us were drones, sensors, and the plans of people who believed they controlled the game. Now the game was over. We had delivered the truth, and it could not be undone. Kate stopped on a ridge, looking back at the team. We did it. Alive, and the truth is out. I watched the horizon. The world was still dark, full of threats, but we had proven humans could be stronger than machines, stronger than plans. True soldiers. Alive, Pike repeated, and this time his voice held a rare calm. I nodded. For today, tomorrow, a new battle begins. And in the silent morning mist, we moved on. Those who had seen the truth, and those who had now learned to survive without illusions. Far ahead, darkness awaited, but we were ready. Because now we were not just soldiers. We were something that could never be destroyed, people who had seen and acted. The ridge's shadow remained behind us, but this time, not as an enemy, but as a reminder. Even in darkness, someone can see. And we moved forward.